everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of our podcast, How Inclusion Drives Innovation. I'm here with Tina, the General Manager of Findem. Welcome, Tina.
It's terrific to be here. Thanks, Laura, for having me.
Excited to jump right into the discussion, but first things first, I would love to hear from you a little bit more about Findem, the problem that you're solving, really cool platform, really interesting AI technology, and then a bit about your background, if that's okay.
That sounds great. So Findem is about a 6-year-old Silicon Valley-based company. We're about 5,000 users, 150 clients, and we are basically helping our clients to find the best talent in the world. And we're doing that by providing a platform that essentially follows the entire talent life cycle and is based on having the best data and combining that with the most precision-oriented tools to be able to find the right data for the right purpose. So that's the problem we're trying to solve and making it more efficient, effective, and also strategic to find the best talent.
Awesome. And what's interesting about Findem, you're solving for talent, but of course, talent is what builds the product. So very excited to hear, you were honored as one of Fast Company's most innovative companies this year. Congratulations. And so maybe kick things off. And I've seen the technology. It's incredible what you've built, and the precision component really stands out. What drives innovation at your company? What is it about the culture that helped you build such a transformative product?
It's a really great question. And in fact, I probably should go back and say that I run the innovation accelerator here at Findem, and innovation is at the core of everything that we do. I think we are looking to solve problems in different ways. And in fact, I joined the company after 7 years running the global DEI practice at Russell Reynolds. And the reason that I joined the company was because I saw a different way to find talent in a more inclusive way. And I think because we're able to throw out any barriers around how do you traditionally do this, I think that we've taken that innovation-based approach to basically putting the best minds around the table, cross-functionally, demographically, gender-wise, to be able to solve that problem in a very, very different way. And I'll give you an example, of how we did it in more traditional ways to embed kind of processes and practices into the process of recruiting, whether that's at the level of screening, assessment, selection, and so forth. And what I found about the solution at Findem is that essentially it does these practices, but it's all built into the system that we've built. And so it does it in a very scalable way.
Got it. And can you give me an example? I think the key is eliminating barriers. It's not about, social engineering. It's about giving everyone a fair opportunity to show their value. Can you give me an example of, what kinds of barriers have you found in the recruiting process, and how did you solve them in a productized way?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think the first thing is that, typically in recruiting, especially at the executive level, we tend to go to the people that we know the best and the networks that we are in. And so casting the net wide across, 800 million plus profiles and enriching the data from 100,000 different sources enables us to really think about who else is out there that could possibly fit the spec that we're not necessarily thinking of. So leaving no stone unturned through the power, right, of being able to cast that net wide through technology. And then in addition to that, being precise about finding the right person by building what we call 3D data and attributes to be able to select people based on the skills that matter not only for the particular individual, but also their experiences at different companies over time. So we can see, was someone at a company pre and post IPO and seen them through that growth period if we're looking for somebody to build a post-public company. And in addition to that, the attributes allow us to really screen on the things that matter the most and find the most precise way of finding that talent.
And it's quite a comprehensive. I like how you describe that it's talent end to end all through the hiring process. This is a curveball. Out of all the functionalities and features of the platform, what is your favorite? What do you think is the coolest or most, innovative, impactful?
Wow, that is a curveball question. And, I think it's the ability to search in many different ways, right? So we traditionally, right, have looked at kind of your more keyword searches or Booleans, as many people know them. And you can revert back to that if that's something that you're comfortable with. But I think the attribute-based searching gets that precision that we're looking for quite often, but can't find through words on a resume. We translate those into these attribute-based skills. And then lastly, the power of AI, being able to use natural language processing to ask a question and for that question to be processed using AI and to be able to search across the data that we've structured and collected. So I think that's probably my favorite functionality of the platform here at Findem.
And it's transformative. I think what we see with our clients, at least, is it's easy to revert back to what you know, which is pattern matching. And typically, the way you pattern match when you're hiring is you look at where did they go to school or what job did they have. And this is a really upending that and saying it's not what have they done, it's what are they good at. And so my question, that's again, you built an entire platform and client base based on completely rethinking recruiting and hiring. How did that idea come up? How did you, mobilize an entire team, a whole company to rethink in this new way? What is it? What's that secret sauce?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you think about the fact that people use resumes historically to make decisions about people and then carry that through to the interview process, it's exactly what you said. It's like we tend as human beings to use shortcuts, whether it's the, school that someone went to, the title that they have, the company that they worked at. And that's not really driving towards what in the end is going to make them successful in a job. So I think it was really easy to get a bunch of people mobilized to say, if we could find a better way, right, to find the best talent for each of the jobs out there, that would be a very exciting mission to build around. And that's why we're able to mobilize, build it so quickly, and do it with so much success.
Yeah. I mean, I'm inspired. So looking back, and we're in the HR space as well, I mean, it's been a rocky road for the past 4 or 5 years, with the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, the recession that never happened, the changeover in governments. And if you're anything like us, there's periods of motivation and periods of demotivation. And particularly when you have a diverse team, you can't fall back to those easy ways of connecting. So I guess, question is, how do you stay motivated in the hard times? So when the market's down, you haven't hit a target. How do you keep your team motivated?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think, it has been a very turbulent time just in the macroeconomic economy here. I think fortunately we've, continued to grow at a rocket pace. But at the same time, I think it's really about building that culture of inclusion to make sure that all of the voices are heard. And I think that's what we're incredibly good at, right? We're innovating and finding new ways to do things and trying and testing and learning and failing fast so that we can make the next thing we do even better. And I think that creating that culture has enabled us to, ride through this period of time where there's so much ambiguity and so much uncertainty, that innovation is really the path ahead, especially in the world of AI as it evolves.
And are there any things, weekly town halls, mentorship programs, kind of touch points with senior leaders, reverse mentoring? Is there anything that you do internally that you think really helps create that culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're like, any Silicon Valley startup where we have a really fun culture in the office and, everything from kind of basketballs and soccer balls floating around to gongs and those things in between. And I think it's a really fun hybrid culture where we appreciate remote working as well. And we give people the flexibility to work how they work best. And I think that's a big part of what makes us successful is because we're enabling individuals to be authentically who they are. They bring their best selves to work, and we're able to connect in ways that feel very authentic to the individual, but the tying and unification through the cultures that we're inclusive. And that's one of the core values of the company. And I think we live it day in, day out.
Yeah, and I think, Tina, going back to your history of, I mean, leading DEI at Russell Reynolds, that's no small feat. And I think you probably know better than anyone, culture doesn't just happen. And I think that's a challenge that a lot of our clients run into is you assume if you build it, they will come. And the people you bring in the door will continue to build this really strong culture. It's engineered. Culture is a combination of actions and behaviors and attitudes and ethos. And so I think, things like fun games and gongs and all that, I think is really interesting. Is there anything that you've tried to build an inclusive culture that you felt didn't really work? Like an experiment that you ran and you kind of sunsetted, anything that didn't really add value that you thought might?
I think we try things all the time that work and don't work, and so I think it's just part of the ethos that we move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'll give you maybe an example from us, to build connection in a hybrid environment. Could we help bring people together on Slack? So try and manufacture those ad hoc moments by the water cooler in a team room of, chit chatting. And so we implemented a bot that would match people on a regular basis once a week for a 20-minute coffee chat. Like, did not work at all. Could not have worked less. So I think what we found as well is you need to build that connection in a hybrid environment, but the point of in-person connection is it's spontaneous. And for us, it was like when you try to schedule it, it just doesn't hit the same. You're not in the right mindset. Um, so we try to share that out, not that it can't work, but for us, wasn't a fit.
Now, Slack is a great example. I think we've had a over proliferation of Slack channels, and we're working on tuning those down to make sure that we have the right mix of meetings, in-person communications, Zoom time, and Slack that work all together.
Yeah. So speaking of technology and something that we kind of teed up previously, over the next 5 years, acceleration of AI, I'm sure new tools will come into the market. How do you see and demographic changes, in the United States and beyond? How do you see the relationship between inclusion and innovation evolving? So 5-year vision, how important will it be in this new world?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more important than ever. I think, look, as systems get built, there's this real opportunity to build them with the perspectives of everyone, whether it's around the country, around the world, and the diverse perspectives that they bring. There's really a big challenge also that if they're not built that way, that it's going to leave certain populations out. And so I think it's mission critical, especially at a time when there's so much intersectionality, and even measuring diversity is going to be a different game, I think 5 years, 10 years, certainly 20 years from now. And so I think it's going to be considered table stakes for people, and we'll find a way to hopefully build that into our technologies so that representing all the different perspectives that people can bring to the table, and therefore building in those ways to innovate in a much more scalable way. And I get really excited about that.
Yeah, and I think that's so well said. And part of your product as well is um, you're helping people get access to a broader, more diverse talent pool. So I guess bringing it back to your, internal team, is there an example of a product or solution or strategy that your team may have come up with that was like directly influenced by having diverse individuals? So maybe someone from an unconventional background or a non-target school came in with a different experience and came up with an idea. Are there any examples that you would have handy?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, look, that's how our Insights product was built. I think it was really around the fact that we had such great data and ways to leverage it to understand what was happening with the populations in different companies, whether it's talent coming in or talent going out. And I think bringing the different perspectives around the table to understand and analyze that data, I think was a key to building our Insights product. And I think one that really speaks to the mission of inclusion, because I think the hardest problem of keeping a diverse workforce engaged and feeling included is retention. And that Insight product really is aimed towards making sure that those retention levels are as high as possible. And that was a result of putting different perspectives around the table and interpreting the data.
Yeah, so smart. And I guess, I think we have probably time for one more. What advice would you give? So I think again, you're benefiting from years of experience building inclusive cultures. Um, you're talking to a CEO or a founder, they want to build, they understand the intellectual connection between innovation and inclusion. They want to build it, no idea where to start. What kind of advice would you give them?
And I think it, really starts with leadership by example. And so I think it is about, first and foremost, ensuring that even when it's in brainstorming and strategy sessions, that the voices are not only being brought out, but that those ideas that might be different from necessarily what the leader thinks, really trying those and making sure that not only are the voices brought out, but they're tested and tried, because I think that kind of leadership is very hard to carry forward, but it signals, right, that this matters in the rest of the company, and that kind of culture will flow down through the teams in the rest of the organization. And I think in that way, an innovative culture will not only start with the top down, but also bubble from the bottom up. And I love to think about, the different affinity groups that can contribute to product development as companies grow and scale because they're applying things from the lens that they see the world from. And I think that's the best way to build this kind of a culture, both from the top down when the company is smaller, but also from the bottom up as the company grows and scales.
I really like that. I think just personal experience, sometimes you forget that you're a role model as a leader, which sounds silly, but I got really good feedback one time. I had a habit earlier on of going on our Slack channel in general and saying, hey guys, here's an idea. What do you think if we built, completely pivoted the product? And then somebody called me once and said, Laura, when the CEO goes on the Slack channel and says, hey, what do you think about pivoting the product? Like people think we're pivoting the product. And I was like, oh, I thought I was just sharing an idea like any other. And I forgot I'm role modeling behavior for the company. So I think that absolutely is a great place to start. Tina, it has been such a pleasure. Is there anything else that you want to leave us with?
No, look, I mean, I've been at this work for quite some time here in Silicon Valley. And, I remember back in 2015 when, it was the first time that the big tech companies had come together to solve around inclusion because innovation is at the core of what we do. We've come a long way since then, and I think there's more work to do. But the exciting part of this is that we've got this new age of AI that's going to enable us to do things very differently. And here at Findem, one of the things that we've discovered is that while most of the assumption is that AI is going to accelerate bias, we found a way to actually overcome bias through the use of technology. And there's more to come on that, but we're excited about that discovery and excited to be here with you on the podcast today. So thanks for having me.
Sounds like perfect timing. Thank you so much, Tina.